Welcome to Two Witness Teaching Program. Two Witness, a Bible teaching program to change and transform people. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Let's dive into it.
We're looking at lesson number 13 about the attributes of love. Is the review. And I see here that moral agent possesses intellect, or has the ability and capacity of knowledge. They also possesses emotions, sensitivities, or as in other words, the capacity of feeling. Those are the qualities of moral agents. They also possesses free will, or the power of choosing, or as a refusing in every case of moral obligation. These abilities and capacities are so related to each other that the intellect, or as the emotions, may control the will, or as the will may, in a certain sense, control them, but that is that the will is free to choose in accordance with the demands over the intellect, which is that the law-giving faculty, or as with the desires and as impulsive of the emotions, or as it can control and direct them both. The will can either demand, or rather command, or obey. It can allow itself to be enslaved by the impulse of the emotions, or as it can put forth its power and control them. The will is also influenced by either the intellect, or as the emotions, by the law of sensitivity or force, law of necessity or force, so that as the will can always resist either the demands over the intelligence, or as the impulse of the emotions, but while they cannot lord it is over the will through the agency over any laws of force. The will has either aids of the laws of necessities or force by which to control them. So the will, that's why somebody say that I'm willing or I am not willing. It is an inbuilt thing that doesn't need any force. Again, we are constantly reminding ourselves of our obligation to obey the law of the intellect rather than the impulse of the emotions, because the emotions can make you feel like I want, but as the will is the intellect, you are aware and you make a choice according to the information that as you know. That is to act with virtue, we must act rationally and intelligently, and not give ourselves up to a blind impulse of our feeling. Now, the love requires by the moral laws that consists in choice, or as willings, as before respected as shows choice or willing control the states over the intellect, and outward action is directly by the law of necessity. Number 3, the law controls the feelings or states of their sensibilities directly. Number 4, certainly, state of the intellect is over the sensibilities, and also certainly outward actions must be implied into the existence of the loves which the law of God requires. That's why number 5, the thought, opinion, judgment, feelings, outward actions be molded and as modified by the state of the heart or will. All of the moral attributes of God and of all the holy beings are only the attributes of love. Love is important to remark, is a term that has expresses them all. God is love. This term expresses God's whole moral character. God is good willings, or the choice over the highest good of God and the universe at an end. Love, let it be remembered, is the obedience of the will of the laws of reasons and of God. It is willing good as the end, for it is own sake is not to gratify. self. Selfishness consists into the obedience of the will to the impulse of the emotions. It is a spirit of self-gratification, something that how am I going to benefit over the decision I make. Let us now process. The point is out of the attributes of that loves which constitutes obedience to the law of God. 1. Voluntarism. That is to say it is choice of the will. The term is often used to express the emotions of fondness or attached as distinct from the voluntary state of the mind or as a choice of the will. These emotions or feelings, as we are all aware, is purely an involuntary state of the mind, because it has to do so with emotions and so of course a passive state of the mind. It has in itself no moral characters. The laws of God requires voluntary loves as a goodwill, as has been repeatedly shown. This love consists in our choices, or rather the choice we make. If it consists in the choice of the will, it must control the thoughts and the states of the emotions as well as the outward actions. It also implies that everything in the course of our lives that flows from the will be consecrated to this end, or rather that end should be a determining factors over the outcome. The freedom is an attribute of this love. The mind is free and spontaneous in its exercise. It makes this choice when it has the power at every moment to choose self-gratification as an end. Intelligence, that is the mind makes choice of this end, and intelligently it not only knows what is chosen, or rather what it chooses, and as why it chooses, but as also that it chooses in accordance with the distinct or rather dictates over the intellect and as of the law of God. So you know the right from the wrong, and when you're making choices, it's not that it is an accidental decision made. It's something you do with full information over what you know what you're doing and the outcome of the same. Voluntariness, liberties, and intelligence are natural attributes of this love. The following are moral attributes. Number 1, virtue. Virtue is a term that expresses the moral character of love. It is a moral rightness. Moral rightness is a moral perfection, righteousness and uprightness. It is other words. It is also conscious of a being virtue, or rather virtuous or a holy, or as a being like God is over the loving, what outward beloved is under consecration to the right end. So you know what you're doing, and you know very well that the outcome is what you expect. Because conscience approves of this choice, therefore there is and must be seen the emotions of feeling of a happiness or a satisfaction, the feelings of a delight in the love that is in the heart of will. These feelings are often very joyous, inasmuch that as the souls in the exercise over this love of the heart is sometimes led to rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory. Much depends in this respect over the clearness over the intellectual views upon the state, over the emotions, upon the manifestations of the Holy Spirit to the soul. Consciousness, peace of mind is under conscious joys in God must be where true love to God exists. Disinterestedness is another attribute of this love. These terms expresses the mind. Choice of an end is of its own sake is not is merely upon condition that as the good belongs to selves. It is these attributes particularly that distinguishes these loves from selfish love. Selfish love makes the relations of God is to self and condition to choosing it. Charity, love seeking not her own. There is a divine economy in love. Each loving souls are not only joyous his own good things, but as also joyous, enjoys the good things of all others so far as he knows their happiness. He not only rejoices in good doing, or rather doing good to others, but as also in holding their enjoyment of good things. His happy is in beholding the pleasure of the beasts over the fields and the fowls of the airs and the fishes of the sea. He sympathizes with all joys and all suffering known to him. Everything known to him is when they suffer, I find this person find like it. That is not a fair deal. It shouldn't be like that. Impartial. Other things are beings equals it matters are not set known to whom the good belongs. It is no respecters of persons, but as a loves knows either as a Jews or Greek is neither bond or free, whites nor blackers, barbarians or Europeans, the Asiatic Africans or as American, but as account is all men is as men, and as by virtues of their common manhood calls every man as a brothers and a six interests of us all and as each. This loves can have as no fellowship with those ridiculous prejudice that are so only are common among normal Christians. Universal here, love chooses the highest goodies of beings in general. It excludes none from it is regard. But as over the contraries, it embraces all. But as by this, it is not intended that as it particularly seeks to promote the good of every individual. It would if as it could, but as it seeks the highest practicable amount of good. It is the states of the mind required by Christ is in the truly divine precept. Is I say unto you, love your enemies, pray for them that hate you, and do good unto them that despiteful use you and persecute you. Efficiency. Now, knows from the consciousness that as a choice constitutes of the mind deepest social powers of our actions. It is honestly as I choose a thing. I cannot but as I make efforts to accomplish that which I choose, provided that as believed that as this is possible. If as I choose an end, is that this choice must isn't as will energize to secure it is end. Efficiency. Efficiency, therefore, is an attribute of love's choice. It must, it wills, it does energize in God, isn't in angels, in saints, or as earth and in heaven. It was these attributes that to love that has led God to give his only begotten Son, that has led the sons to give himself what? Whosoever as believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. God had to do that because of this love voluntarily. If love is efficiency in producing outward action, isn't efficiency in producing inward feelings, it is efficiency to work up so the intellects and set. The world is over thought. In action is to devise ways, means for realizing it is end. So the it is end will automatically be known that the intention is good or is bad. While effort is possible that to Christians, it is natural to him as his breath. He has within himself the various main springs of activities and a heart set on the promotions of the highest good of the universe, or rather universal being. While he has lives and activities at all, it wills and it must be directed to this end. Let this never be forgotten. And idols or as an inactives, inefficiencies, Christians in normal religions is an essentials actives principles. So when is anti-reality exists, it must exercise, manifest itself. It is not merely good without making efforts to realize their desires. They may desires without action. If theirs will be so active, their lives must be. Complacency. This consists in loves and as a viewings, it is the relations to holding beings. These terms also expresses both states of the intelligences of the emotions. Moral agents are so constituted that as they necessarily approves of all moral agency. And as when they, even the sinners, behold right character or is a moral goodness, they are compelled to respect and approve it by the laws of their intelligence. This they not infrequently, this they not infrequently regard as evidence of a goodness in themselves, but as this is doubtless just as common is in hell as it is on earth. The worst sinners or on earth or as in hell is have by the constitutions of their nature the necessities are imposed upon them by paying intellectual respect to more moral excellency. It is remarkable that as a what extent the religions is regarded as a part of the emotions and as a consisting in mere feeling. So common is it. Indeed, there is almost is uniformly is when professed Christians speaks of their religion, they speak of their feelings or the states of their emotions. Instead of speaking of their conscious consecrations to God is and the good of being. Nothing is of a great importance there as forever to understand that religions is always and necessarily that produces outward actions and inward feeling. There is on accounts of the connections over the intellect and emotions almost is any and as every variety of feelings may exist is in the mind as produced is by the perception of us the intellect. Whatever the states of the will is may be there as unless we are conscious of a good will, sorrows of consecrations of God and of the good of a being. Unless we are conscious of living for this end, it avails us nothing, whatever our views and our feelings may be. And as also it behooves us to consider that as although their views and as feelings may exist, is while is the heart is wrong, they will certainly exist is when the heart is right. So there may be some feelings and deep feelings when the heart is in the selfish attitude. Yet there's will and must be the deep emotions and the strenuous actions when the heart is right. Point number 10, opposition to sin. Is another attribute of characters of a true love to God is a love is good willing. To willings are the highest goodies of beings as an end. Now there is nothing in the universe more destructive of this good than a sin. Love cannot do otherwise than as be forever opposite to sins as the abominable things which is necessarily the hate. It is absurd and as a contradiction to affirm that love is not opposite to sin. Love is, God is love, and he must therefore be the opponent of sins or of all sins in every form and degree. Opposition to all sins is and must be the choice of the will, and on the grounds alone it becomes virtue. When the intellect strongly approves of us, they denounces the sin is there is naturally and unnecessarily are comprehending feelings of opposition to it in their sense, and emotions of loathing, over hatred and abhorrence. This is often mistaken for oppositions over the will or a heart. This is manifest from the fact that as often the most notorious sin as manifest strong intelligent indignation in views of oppressions, injustice, falsehood, and as many of other forms of sin. These conditions over the emotions and over the intellects, as I said, is often mistaken for virtuous opposition to sin, which it cannot be unless it involves an act of the will. So somebody must be fully willing to do something and is now accountable and responsible for the same. But let it be remembered that as a virtuous positions to sin is characteristics of love to God isn't to man, and these oppositions to sin cannot possibly coexist with any degrees of sins in the heart. That is, this opposition cannot coexist with the sinful choice. The will cannot at the same time be opposed to sins and commit sin. Opposition to sin, sin as a condition of the intellect or as of the emotions may exist. Is in other words, the intellect may strongly approve over sins, and the emotions may feel strongly opposed to certain form of it, while at the same time the will may cling to itself's intelligence over other forms. This fact is a double doubt accounts over the common mistakes that as we can at the same time exercise a virtuous opposition to sin and still continue to commit it. So you are trying to say that I'm not part of it while you're doing the same thing doesn't make sense. Many are no doubt laboring under these four fatal delusions that they are conscious not only of any intellectuals disapproval of sin in certain forms, but are also that at times of strong feelings of opposition to it, and yet they are also conscious of continuing to commit it. They therefore conclude that as they have principles of holiness in them and also principles of sin, that they are partly holy and partly sinful at the same time. That is absurd. The oppositions of intellects and of feelings are they supposed to be the holy oppositions, when is no doubt it is just as common in hell, and as even is more so than as it is on earth, for the reason that a sin is more naked there than as it is generally is here. I am a moral agent. My intellect necessarily disapproves of sin. Is my emotions is in a connection, or rather is connected to my intellect. That is in my sympathize with it, is or as in the affected is about it is a perceptions and it is judgment. I contemplate sin. I necessarily disapprove of it and I condemn it. This affects my emotions, and I loathe and as abhor it. I nevertheless commit it. Now, how is this to be accounted for? That is the question. And the usual method is by ascribing it to a depravities in the will itself, lapsed or as a corrupted state over the faculty, so that as it chooses sin for its own sake. They say this will continues until that faculty's will is renewed by the Holy Spirit, and the holy influence is impressed upon the will itself. But here is a gross mistake, is in order to see the truth upon the subject. It is a great importance to inquire what sin is. It is admitted is on all hands that as a selfishness is sin, and the comparatively is a few sins that to understand that a selfishness is the whole of sins, and that is every form of sins may be resolved into selfishness, just as every form of virtue may be resolved into love. Selfishness is sin. But as what is selfishness? It is the choice of a self-gratification as an end, in the preferences of our own gratification to the highest good of the universal being. Self-gratification is the supreme end over selfishness, and this choice is sinful. That it is the morals over his selfish choice is sin. Moreas is no case in as case sins be chosen for its own sake, or as an end is whenever anything is chosen to gratify self, it is not chosen because the choice is sinful, but as notwithstanding it is sinful. Stealing is sinful, but no thief steals to be sinful. Very funny. Drunkenness is sinful, but no person drinks to be sinful. We choose the self-gratification, but no sins as an end. Eve ate the forbidden fruits, and this eating was sinful. But the thing that she chose or as intended was not the sinfulness of eating, but as a gratification expected from it, from the fruit. To say that a sin is or as a can be chosen for its own sake, it is untrue and absurd. Sin may be sought as loved as a means, but as never as an end. It is after all a self-gratification that is chosen as an end, and not sin. Sin is the means, and the self-gratification is actually the end. Before somebody chooses to sin, the first thing they see how they are going to benefit by the choice they make. So when they are doing that, they're not doing that to be sinful, but they're doing that based on what they're going to benefit by the choice they make. So thereafter they realize they were doing it for selfish reasons, and that now becomes sin. Examples: a drunk in thinking about the moral characters or drunkenness, he instantly and necessarily condemns the abominations. His emotions sympathizes with the intellect. So he hates the sinfulness of drinking strong drinks and himself on account of it. He is ashamed, is unaware it possible that he will even spit in his own face. Now, in this state, it will surely be absurd to suppose that as he could choose sin, the sin of drinking as an end, so as for its own sake. This would be choosing it for as an impossible reasons, and not for no reasons. For while the intellect that contains the sins of drinking strong drink, and as emotions hates the influence is sinfulness over the intelligence. Nevertheless, here still exists no strong as appetites, not for the sin, but as for the legal. There is the will seeks the gratification, notwithstanding sinfulness of it. The emotions hate the sinfulness, but as more strongly the desires the things, the choice over which is which is sinful. He wills in a cell of beings yielding to the strong impulse over the emotions, and at the end chosen is in no case the sinfulness over the act, but a self-gratification. Those who suppose these oppositions over the intellect or over the emotion to be a holy principle are fatally deluded. It is this kind of oppositions to sin that has often manifested itself among wicked men, that has lead them to take credit for goodness or virtues and notice an atom over which is do they possess. Let be ever remember that as a virtuous opposition to sin is always necessarily an attitude of love and the condition of the will. That is naturally impossible that as this oppositions of will should coexist with the commission of sin. Compulsion for the miserable. So there is a compulsion. Also, that is point number 11. Also, which is the conditions over the emotions. It may is and does often exist in forms of as an emotions, but as these emotions of beings involuntary has no moral character in itself. Emotions which is a virtue and as which is required for us as duties is conditions over the will. It is over the course or as an attribute of love. Love will that as a happiness that should exist over its own sake. It must therefore wish the misery might not exist. Compassions of the will is willing, particularly that as the miserable should be happy. Compassions over the emotions is a symbol of feelings of pities in views of misery. As has been said, it is not a virtue. It is only a desire, but it's not willing. Consequently, it does not benefit its object. And this kind of compassions may evidently coexist with the selfishness. But compulsions of heart or a will is cannot suffer it. Consists in willing the happiness over the miserables over its own sake. And of course, it is impartial. It wills, and from it is various natures must deny self to promote its end. Circumstances may exist that as a render it is unwise to express these compassions by actually extending reliefs to the lost in hell. Many circumstances may exist in which is although such compassions or is hastens to the release of its subject, yet is on the whole a miseries that as exists in regard of the less or as two vile evils, and as therefore so the wisdoms of love forbids it to put forth actions and save its objects. It surely is a bizarre said, therefore, before I leave the considerations of us, this attribute that as the will is often less influenced by the feeling of compassion. In this case, the mind is no less selfish in seeking to promote the reliefs and the happiness over its subject than as it is in any other form of selfishness. The happiness of the miserable is not into the case sought as an end or as for its own sake, but as a means of gratifying our own feelings. This is not obedience of wills to the law of intellect, but as obedience to the impulse of the emotions. It is not natural and intelligent compassion, but as just such compassions as you often see mere animals exercise. So they will risk, they even lays down their lives to give relief over their numbers, or as to many who is in misery. In them, this has no moral character, having no reason. It is not sin for them to obey their emotions. Nice. This is a laws over their beings, and this they cannot but do. For them, then is to seek their own gratifications as an end is no sin, but as a man has a reasons, it is a bound to obey it. You have a reason, just have to obey that law. When he seeks it for as a no higher reason than as to gratify his feelings, he denies his humanities, he seeks it is not out of regards to the sufferer, but as in self-defense or as to relieve his own pain and as to gratify his own desire. This is what you call is sins. Men are as always taking credits of holiness when their holiness is only sin. But as I must notice, I leave this subject without observing, and that as when compassion exists as conditions of the will, it will certainly also exist as feelings of the emotions. A man of the compassionate heart will always be a man of compassionate emotions. He will feel and be, he will also act. Nevertheless, in his actions will not be effects over his feelings, but as will be the results of his sober judgment. He make judgment, and out of that he can make his own action. He can act over it. Three classes of persons are those be compassionate. Number A, feels compassion. This does not influence the will. He does nothing about it. Then number B, feels compassion. He will do some things, but as not an act of a will or a heart. Number C, feels compassion, obeys his reasons to serve God and the highest goodness of the universe. So the three parts coexist. Number 12, mercy. This term expresses a state of feelings and represents the conditions of the emotions. Mercy is often understood to be the same as compassion, but as thence it is not highly understood. Mercy, considered as the conditions of the will, is an attitude to pardon crimes. Such is the nature of love, that is, it will seek the good events of those who deserves it. When this can be wisely done, it is ready to forgive, to seek the goods of the evil and as unthankful, and to pardons. When there is repentance, it is a goodwill viewed is in relations to one who deserves punishment. Mercy, considered as a feelings or emotions, is a desire for the pardon or a goodness of one who deserves punishment. It is only a feeling, a desire, or of cause it is a voluntary and has in itself no moral character. Mercy will, or as a cause, manifests itself in actions and in effort to pardon, or as to procure a pardon, unless the attributes of wisdom prevents. It may be unwise to pardon, or as to seek the pardons over or a guilty one. It was these attributes of love modified as unlimited in its exercise by wisdoms and justice, and energized in providing the means and as its openings the ways for the pardons over our guilty race. As the wisdoms and justice are also attributes of love and mercy that can never manifest itself by efforts to secure its ends, except in a manner that the pardons are conditioned that as do not set aside justice and wisdom. No one's attributes of love or as it can be exercised at the express of another. The conditions, oppositions are to it, and as we must is infer from the terms itself, the means are as acceptable, because it is absurd to suppose there is a good will be chosen because it is good, and yet there is the mind that as makes this choice should not hesitate to use injurious means to obtain its end. Mind that as can fix upon the highest well-beings of God and the universe as an end, can never consent to use efforts for the accomplishment is of this end, that as there is seen to be inconsistent with it, that is that it tends to prevent the highest good of being. Mercy as a mere feelings and will pardons without repentance or conditions, will pardons without reference to public justice, but as viewed is in connections with the other attributes of benevolence, we learn that as all those are really attributes of love, yet it is noticed and cannot be exercised without the fulfillment of those conditions that as will secure the concepts of all their attributes of benevolence. These truths are beautifully taught and as in illustrated is into the doctrines and the facts of atonement, as we shall see. Why shall we study the attributes of love? Indeed, is without considerations over the various attributes of love, we are necessarily all in ducks and as in conclusion respects to the character and as government of God is the spirits and the meanings of these laws and the spirits and the meanings of the gospels, our own spiritual states and the development of character around us. Without knowing the attributes of love to benevolence, we shall not fail to be perplexed and to find apparently discrepancies in the Bibles and into the divine administrations, and is in the manifestations of a Christian character, both as revealed in the Bibles and as exhibited in the common life. If mercy, as mercy is in attributes of love, it wills naturally and inevitably directs and attentions over the intellect, over the diversing ways and means to render and exercise of mercy consistent is with the other attributes of love. It will employ the intelligences in devising means to secure the repentances of the sinner and to remove all the obstacles out of the ways of it is a free, full exercise. Hence, it is certain that there is a mercy will secure efforts to produce, or rather to procure repentances and pardon of sinner. Number 13, justice. Justice consists in dispositions of treat every moral agent according to his values or as a merit. Mercy will pardon, justice will punish for the public good. Justice as a feelings or emotions is a feeling that as the guilty that deserves punishment and a desires that as he may be punished. This is an involuntary feeling, has no moral character. It is often a strong, excited and as or frequently is the cause of mobs and popular commotions. I have said that as the mere desires has no moral characters, but as when the will is governed is by this desire and yields itself up to seek its gratification, this state of will is selfishness under one of its most frightful forms. Justice as an attribute of love is virtues and exhibits itself into the executions over the penalties of the laws and in support over the public order and as in virtues only the ways to the well-being of mankind. Justice must be viewed under the various aspects and in various relations. So there is what we call number A, public justice. Here is wills, no case suffers and the executions over the penalty to be set aside unless something be done to support the authorities of the laws and of the lawgiver. It also secures the due administration of reward and looks narrowly after the public interest. Always insists that as the greatest interest is shall prevail over the lesser. That private interest is that shall never set aside public one of a greater value. Public justice is modified as in it is exercised by the attributes of mercy. Mercy cannot consistently with the attributes extended pardons, but as upon conditions of repentance and substitutes are being surrendered is to the government. So, on the other hand, justice is tempered by mercies and cannot consistently with the attributes proceeds to take vengeance when the highest good does not required. When punishment can be dispensed with this and without public loss, thus these attributes mutually limit each other, exercise and render the whole character of love perfect and heavenly. Love without justice will be anything but as a merely lovely and as a perfect. Point number B, personal justice. This consists in dispositions to visit the offender with that punishment which he deserves, because it is fit and proper that as a moral agent should be dealt with is according to his deeds. Then number C, commercial justice. Commercial justice, this consists in the willing equals of values and uprightness in the business and all secure transactions. On these attributes executes laws. It aims to secure commercial honesty. It says to violence, disorders, and injustice, peace, be still, and there must be a great calm. Whenever any policy of government is adopted, is it in a family or a state that excludes the exercise of these attributes, all must be failure, defeats, or ruined. The minds may be so very often and carried away by the impulses of feeling, so that a maze over times often have as a parent over true love. And as well as the same individuals is the selfishness in business and overreaching in all the commercial relations and difficulties in the man is not is adjusted that is. Not so truly is a loving. His love is only an imposing species over selfishness. His love results from feelings and is not a true love. Love is a just state of the will. It is a willing justly, and it must is then is by law of necessity secure justice conduct. If the heart is just and the lives must be, a man cannot be unjust to his neighbors' reputations, his person, his properties, his soul, his bodies, nor indeed the injustice in any respect of a man or God. It will and must secure confessions and restitutions in every case of a remembered wrong, so far as this is practicable. It should be distinctly understood that as a loving or as a truly religious, man cannot be unjust, and he may indeed appear to be so to others, but as he cannot be truly religious or a loving and unjust at the same time. The attributes of selfishness, as we shall see in the proper place, are as a direct opposites of those love. In two states of the minds are as the contraries as heavens and hell. They are so far away from each other and cannot more coexist in the same mind. There are things that can be not be at the same time. I say that as a man that truly is in the exercise of love appears to be injustice in anything. He is only the source in appearance and not in fact. Justice and injustice belongs to the choice. No outward act can in it is selves be either just or unjust. It has to be something that is inbuilt, coming from within. A just man is a sanctified man, is a perfect man, is in the sense that as he is at present in an upright state. Truthful, point number 14. Truth is an attribute of love that is a quality that adheres to rights. In the very act of becoming loving, the mind embraces truths of the realities of things. It is also conformity over the will to the reality of things. Then point number 15, patience. Patience, this term is frequently used to express conditions of the emotions, when thus used as it designates a calms and unruffled states of the emotions or feelings under circumstances that as tends to exercise or rather excite, angers or as impatience of feeling. The calmness over the emotions or patience is as a conditions over the emotions is purely an involuntary states of the mind, and although it is a pleasing manifestations, yet it is not a property wholly. It may be and often releases an effect of patience as a conditions of the will, and therefore an effect is of virtues, but as it is not itself virtue. The tempers may and often does proceed from constitutions, temperament is and from circumstances and habit. Patience here. As virtues must be voluntary states of the will, of the mind. The Greek word is of patience means perseverance under the trials, continuances and bearings ups, understands the afflictions or privations, steadfastness of purpose in spite of the obstacles. It is the qualities of consistency and fixedness, bearings up under the trials, afflictions and across the persecutions or discouragement. Remember that as the states of the choice of the will, it does not necessarily control the feelings, desire, or emotion that as theirs may be shall never be strong, exercised or rather excited by status or as the circumstances in opposition to the will, and thus becomes a powerful temptations to seek their gratification instead of seeking the highest good of being. Opposing acts of the will cannot coexist with the loves. All that as can be truly said is that as the will has an indirect control of the feeling, desire, appetite, passion, etc., it can suppress any class of feelings when they arise by the diverting the attentions from their course, or as by taking into consideration such views and facts as well as calms and change the state of the emotions. Irritable feelings, or that is in commonly called impatience, may be directly caused by ill healthy irritables and nerves, and as by many things over which is that the will has no direct control. But this is not impatient in the sense of sins. If these feelings are not suffered to influence the will, if the will is abide is impatient, is it such? If such as feelings are not cherished and are not suffered to shake the integrities of the will, they are not sin. If they are allowed to control the will, to break forth in words and actions, then there is a sin, but as the sin that does not consist into the feelings, but as into the consent is over the will to gratify them. There are the outward action will comprehend with the states and the actions of the will provided to physical obstacles be opposed to them in a universal truth. Patience then is as attributes of the loves that consists not in feelings but as perseverance under the trials and status of the emotion that as attends to selfishness. It should always be borne in mind that as neither the patience or impatience in the forms of mere feelings excited for any length of times and in any degree, it is itself said as a whole is into one hand or a sinful into the other. Meekness is actual conditions of the will isn't attributes of loves in the position both is a resistance to injuries and retaliation. The existence of sin is the greatest as the evils as the afforded an opportunity for loves to manifest. It is a beautiful phrase, and as of develops it is sweet attributes in a most is a enchanting manner. And thus the divine economies of love that brings a good out of so great is an evils. Lemonade out of lemons. Humanity, point number 17. Humanity, this term seems often is to be used is to express a sense of unworthiness, over guilt, over ignorance, or over nothingness, to express feelings of ill desert. When used is to designate a status of the emotions, it represents those feelings of shame and unworthiness, ignorance, and as a nothingness, over which is those are as most deeply conscious who have been enlightened by the Holy Spirit and respects to their true character. But is as conditions of the will, as the attributes of love, it consists in the willingness to be known and appreciated according to our really character. But humanity considered as a virtues that consists in the consensus of the will is to be known, to confess, and to take our proper place into the scales of beings. It is that particularly popularity of a love that has a wills at the good of beings as to wills to pass so no others than as we really are. These attributes will render us the confessions of our sin to God and man, nature, and even make it luxury. It is easier to see that as about to these attributes the saints could not be happy in heaven. Could say promised that to bring into justice every workers and every secret things, whether it be good or whether it be evils, not with this pride is exists. It is also greatly pains the souls and have all the characters are known, so that as unless these attributes are really belongs to the saints, they will be ashamed over the judgments and the fields of the confusions, even in heavens itself. But this sweets and attributes will secure them against and the shames of the confusions over the faith that as always or otherwise render heavens itself a hell or to them. They will be so perfectly willing and happy to be known and as estimated according to their character. These attributes will secure in all the signs of the earth that as a confessions of faultless ones to another's, which is often enjoined into the Bible. By this is not intended that a Christian is always think it wise and necessary to make confessions of all their secret sins or to man. But it intended that as they will confess to those whom they have as injured and of all to whom love demands that as they should confess. These attributes are secures itself a professor possesses against the spiritual pride, against the ambitions to get above others. It is modest and as an unassuming status of the mind. Self-denials. It is a love any beings better than is ourselves. We of us causes denies ourselves when is others owns. Interest is comes into competitions with this. Love is good as well is and is good to the others more than is to selves. And it is absurd is to say that as I shall not deny myself when is my own interest is a conflict with good. It is impossible that to become loving without ceasing to be selfish. It is others word is a perfect is a self-denials in implied is to beginning to be love. Love then is implies a complete self-denials. Then is the ultimate reasons of willing goodies to others is that as persons and owns ends may be promoted is in this selfishness. It is making good is to self in this end. This sin as may be said toward is a good is toward the church and towards the interests of the religions in general. It is a willing goodies as an end is of only that to selves and to others only that to means of promoting our own good. This is one of the delusions or forms of selfishness. When is one makes his own selfishness and the ends over the prayer of alms and givings of all the religious duties. This is only